with our Japanese brand that stole your hearts. It proved to be hugely capable race winners.
240Z was introduced in American market by Yutaka Katayama, president of Nissan Motors USA operations, widely known as Mr. K. The early cars from 1969 to mid-1971 had some subtitle differences, compared to the late 71 to 1973 cars. The most visible difference is the early cars had a chrome 240Z badge on the spale pillar, the two horizontal vent in the rear hatch below the glass molding providing the flow through ventilation. In mid-1971, there were production changes, including exterior and interior colors, was wrestling of the sail pillar emblems, where with just the letter Z placed in a circular vented emblem, and the vents were eliminated from the hatch panel of the car, due to complaints of exhaust being circulated into the car. Design changes from the US Model 240Z occurred throughout production, but were not reflected in the JDM Fairlady, including interior modifications for the 1972 model year and a change in the location of the bumper overriders, as well as the addition of some emission control devices and the adoption of the new style of emission-reducing carburetors for 1973 model year. In Japan, it was exclusive to Nissan Japanese dealership called Nissan Bluebird stores and was first introduced in Japan in 1969. The 1970 models were introduced in October 1969, received a 2.4-liter engine with a manual choke and a 4-speed manual. A less common 3-speed automatic transmission was optional from 1971 on, and had a Nissan full automatic badge in 2004. Sports Car International named this car number 2 of their list in the top sports car of the 1970s. The Datsun's 240Z is the first model from the first series of Nissan Z cars. Bagged the S30, the first series was produced between 1969 to 1978, and also includes 260Z and 280Z. The Z cars disappeared from the US market with the introduction of 300ZX twin-turbo 1993 and came back 7 years later with the 350Z. The 240Z came into two different versions, one for the American market and one for the Japanese one. The one for the Japanese market was more designed into race, while the American model had nothing of a race car in it. It was powered by a SOC L20 inline-6 engine with an output of 130 horsepower. And with the American market, came with L24 inline-6 engine with twin SU carburetors that produce 151 horsepower. The engine was actually 510s 1.6 liters, OHC4 with 2 more cylinders grafted, on to make a surprisingly lusty 2.4-liter SOC inline-6 with dual SU-like carburetors. 240Z also featured a 4-speed manual transmission, disc brakes in the front and HO hum drums in the rear. The exterior styling was inspired by the Ferrari GTHO proportions and the Jaguar E-Type nose. Nissan also added delicate bumper and frame by headlights recessed into ice scoop bucket mounted in the front fenders. It had a weight of 2320 pounds. The interior features high back bucket seats and instrumentation deeply tunneled into the dash. The car made the 0 to 60 miles per hour sprint in 8.2 seconds and complete the quarter mile in 15.5 seconds at 86.5 miles per hour. Top speed was 125 miles per hour. The name was changed from 240Z to 260Z because of the new engine displacement of 2.6 liters, and also a 2+2 seated model was added to the lineup, with a wheelbase of 11.9 inches longer than the two-seaters. On the US market, it was sold only in 1974, but on the other countries was available until 1979. Even in the engine displacement was bigger. The output was lower, only 140 horsepower, and that was because the emissions regulations forced a reduction in ignition timing and compression ratio. The 260Z was offered with a 3-speed automatic transmission. Because of its reduced performance, the 260Z wasn't a success as the 240Z. As a result, the company had to lower the prices. Compared with the 240Z, the 260Z came with a few improvements. The climate controls were sensibly laid out and easier to work. And there was additional stiffness in the chassis due to redesign of the chassis rails, which were larger and extended further back than in the 240Z. The next changes to the model were made in 1975. As a result of a new engine displacement, the car also took a new name, the 280Z, and it has the power of 2.8-liter engine. The car finally came with a 5-speed manual transmission. The rest of the car had the cosmetic changes and the new prices. The 280Z was sold only in the US, and in 1977 Nissan sold 70,000 coupes and 2+2s. For the 280Z model, the Nissan replaced the SU carburetors on all models with Bosch L Jetronics field injection. The output was increased from 140 to 149 horsepower. In 1977, the first series Z car saw its biggest power improvement. From 150 horsepower in the original 240Z, it was now increased to 170 horsepower. Also, the models featured a 5-speed overdrive transmission. In 1978, Nissan offered a Black Pearl 280Z limited edition. All the models around 850 to 1500 were offered in the Black Pearl paint with a unique stripe kit. In 1979, Nissan unveiled the second generation of Z cars. The first model, the 280ZX, was more refined, the luxurious than the previous generation. A true sports car with a retro look, the first series Z cars were a real success on the market.